live, and we should be live. Hey, everybody, or we will be anyway in a second. All right, let me minimize this and do this thing. Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon. It is Angie Atkinson, and it is Tuesday. Oh, now I hear myself talking. Okay, you did. Okay, it is Tuesday, and I'm here as usual every other Tuesday with Dana Morningstar from Thrive After Abuse. Opposite Tuesdays, we're here at the same time, well, half an hour earlier, over at her channel. So welcome, everybody. If you haven't yet, hey, Joe, hey, Monica, hey, Sarah, make sure you subscribe to both channels. And Dana, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. It's great to see you as always.
Always happy to have you. Always happy to be on your channel. All right. So we have a few people kind of coming in today. Mm-hmm. And I have this thing that I thought would be fun to talk about, Dana, and you tell me what you think about it. Hey, Rebecca, Nicola, Chelsea. It is called, and you may have heard of this before, but I found it interesting for a couple of reasons. First of all, the concept is echoism. Okay.
Okay.
And I found it interesting because of the fact that I have an anthology coming out with survivor stories, and it is actually called Echo Evolving or something like that. The word echo in the title because of the fact that, of course, you know, Echo from mythology, a narcissist, Echo basically losing herself. And so anyway, but I found this interesting article today. Apparently, and you know, you've heard of Craig Malkin, right? He's a narcissism expert, and I've read some things by him and quoted him in my work and things like that. And he's a psychologist or a psychiatrist, one of the two, I can't recall. But anyway, the idea of echoism is that, you know, it's another word, I think, for opposite of narcissist, right? It basically means people who are us, people who have been codependent, people who have been empathic, et cetera, et cetera. But what's interesting about this thing is it talks about, you know, they act like it's a big new concept, but it says only now psychologists have begun to see Echo, a human counterpart, as just as valid and damaged as the flashier, needier narcissist. And I think this is interesting because I think that even though it seems a little bit, what's the word? Like, what does it mean when something's kind of trendy or like, you know, anyway, but
okay.
I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for. Just, it's a different way to explain it. You know, it says things like, Malkin says echoism is best thought of as a survival strategy. So they echo the needs and desires of the other person while they lose their own identity in the drama and chaos of the relationship, you know, and then they, of course, later in life seek to replace any child-parent dynamic they had with a spouse or whatever. And then he says basically the echoists just want to be safe and loved, and they figure they need to ask as little from as many people as possible, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, there was a counselor, Arlo McCloskey from the UK, who's created a support group called Echo Society and in the UK. So I think this is great because it is increasing awareness of the fact that, you know, people are damaged from these relationships, but at the same time, you know, it says they're doing all of the same kinds of things that we've been doing for a long time is what it sounds like. So I guess my thing is, I think it's a sort of, I don't know if trendy is the word, but trending kind of way to bring attention to something that we are already aware of. Yeah. What are your thoughts? Anything?
Yeah, I would agree. You know, the challenge, I think, with the mental health community is that their understandings of anything related to mental health comes from the DSM.
Yep.
And if it's not in the DSM, then it doesn't exist. You can't treat it. You can't bill for it. You can't refer for it. Like there's kind of this breakdown of understanding and of how to approach certain things. And so, I mean, even codependency isn't in the DSM.
Right.
So this whole, I mean, the closest thing that even comes to codependency in the DSM is dependent personality disorder.
Right.
And it's not the same as codependency. So, borderline personality disorder is really common, commonly thought of, I think, by a lot of mental health professionals when they're working with somebody that's got there's a lot of overlap too. But yeah, I think that there's definitely a need for like more understanding and terminology and especially awareness of what the partners of abusive people, or not even the partners, just the person on the receiving end of abuse, like what they go through, whether it's with a boss, a parent, a child, a significant other, you name it. So, but I would say, yeah, this topic is become really popular. And I have to almost kind of laugh when I see different mental health professionals start talking about narcissistic abuse, because I guarantee you they got all of that from us, basically, because it's not in the DSM and they didn't come up with it. So, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's probably more from like YouTube and blogs and stuff like that. But it's, I think verbal and emotional, more like covert forms of abuse fly under the radar. And there really is this real need to identify them and to treat them instead of just looking at domestic violence as physical abuse or just focusing on the abuser, because the support that's out there for, as we all know, for people that have gone through this is just ridiculous at best, from the mental health community.
For sure. Yeah. And on that same note, somebody is saying that Bill Cosby has a personality disorder. So while I just kind of Googled that really quick, and apparently a psychologist is saying he's still a threat. I don't know if this is of interest or not, but I'm trying to see what they're saying the disorder is. I mean, I think it's obvious that he has a personality disorder. It just says Mr. Cosby had a personality disorder that was evident in his lifetime of interest in having sex with non-consenting women.
Yeah.
You think? I
mean, hands down. I mean, antisocial personality disorder, hands down. Right. He fits at, check across all the boxes. Like, superficially charming, driven by dominance and deceit, pattern of exploitation, pattern of disregard for like rules and norms, and then obviously like drugging and raping, but dozens, if not hundreds of women. Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I can't even, I guess people are saying, the defense was saying, well, because he's 81 years old and legally blind, he's not going to be a threat. So let him be, because he's Bill Cosby or whatever. But the prosecutor was saying, but he may have already known the person, or the person might work for him or whatever. He's still a threat. They want to put him in prison. So I don't know what I think about that, but I think that, he should be held responsible for what he's done.
I guess that's my thing, right? Like, it's not about so much as is he or is he not a threat? It's that there's consequences for actions. And you might be 81 and blind, but I really feel like he needs to wait out the rest of his days not getting his way.
Right.
Like, he needs to be punished for what he's done. And, to spend the next 10 years or so in jail, I think that's like the least that they can do, right? I mean, I think that's
he's ruined lives, right?
Yeah, dozens. I mean, dozens upon dozens of lives. So it's not about him and whether or not he's threat assessment. It's, punishment for crimes done. So
and people are agreeing that it's more than physical. It's more than, absolutely agree. Okay. All right. Do you want to start taking questions? Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, let's see here. So
I see Deborah says she just received an email saying, are you talking about Bill Cosby? Saying
anything.
Well, I think she said that she just received an email saying that Bill Cosby, if I understand it correctly, was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in jail.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. She was the one, Deborah was the one that said at the beginning, that she was the one that brought it up to me. So she, so she would know. That's cool. Yeah. So he did get some prison, which I guess is, I'm sure it'll still be like, prison, but it's better than, it's better than nothing. He won't be able to do exactly what he wants exactly when he wants. Did you watch that movie where Martha Stewart went to prison?
No, no.
Yeah, I did. It
Hmm.
wasn't that great, but it was still prison. You know what I mean? But I think it was clear she had a tiny bit of special treatment.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, anywho,
Hmm.
okay. Let's see. Did you have one picked out for the next for a question, or do you want me to?
Sure. Well, I've got a couple here.
Okay.
One from Zasha, who
Okay.
says, I am still stepping away from my relationship, but I need input. His new girlfriend is sick and in the hospital, like real sick. How do you be there and show empathy? Can I even, or should I even? You want to take that?
Let me make sure I understood that question correctly because I feel like I must be missing something. So, do I understand that this is her ex she's talking about,
Yes.
and his new girlfriend is in the hospital, very sick, and she's asking us how does she show empathy or should she show empathy? Is that correct?
Correct.
No, don't go. You're not required to go. If you have a child with that person, then you can be empathetic on visits. Like as you're exchanging, you can say, oh, I'm so sorry that's going on. That's it. I don't think you're required to show up at the hospital. I don't think you're required to comfort this person. You're not in that person's life anymore. That's not, and if you don't have a child with that person or any other reason to stay connected to that person, then I would just do nothing. I would continue on with my life as previously experienced. What about you, Dana?
Yeah, I agree. I think to show up and to insert yourself in that is just going to, it's not appropriate and it's not healthy and it causes triangulation. And it's not something that's going to, I know if I was in a hospital bed, I for sure wouldn't want my ex's girlfriend, my current boyfriend's ex-girlfriend showing up.
Oh my God, that's really legit. Yeah.
I don't think that I would imagine not wanted by her. And if he needs support, he needs to go find appropriate support from a counselor at the hospital or his own friends and family, but not leaning on you. That's disrespectful to her. It's triangulating of you. It's just wildly inappropriate across the board. So I would say, like Angie was saying, be brief, be polite, but be gone. Like this is not your thing.
Right. And I think that if her ex is like requesting her attention in this case, that's even more of a reason to not give it.
Oh,
Because,
100%.
do you really want to be the supply for this person? Because what I would suspect is that anybody he's leaning on heavily during this time will continue to be circle of supply when this person passes. And then that puts you in the line of fire again, in my opinion.
Yeah. And if he is saying, oh, I just need somebody to talk, or I just need somebody to listen and I would just redirect that, like assuming that you have to have contact with this person because you have children. Like that would be the only reason I would even
Be in contact.
Yeah. That I would redirect him. I'm sorry that you're going through this. It might be a good time for you to reach out to a counselor. I don't feel that I don't feel that this is appropriate for me to be involved because that's accurate. So don't feel obligated that you need to sit there and listen because his girlfriend's going through a time. It's just, again, it's disrespectful to her. Would you want your current boyfriend talking to his ex because you're dying of cancer in the hospital?
No.
Like, no, that's just
No,
not okay.
No, as a matter of fact, I actually, and I shouldn't be laughing because that's not funny, but I actually, the reason I was smiling is because I became friends with my current husband's ex-wife, which was a really brief relationship, no kids, thank goodness, on Facebook, mostly because I'm not gonna lie, I was really curious, and I'm a nice person, and she's a nice person, so it was fine, but I still didn't want her trying to talk to him. You know what I'm saying? And I literally have no concerns about that situation being a repeat deal. You know what I mean? So, but even so, I don't really feel comfortable with the two of them having a conversation. We don't talk to her or anything during the, we don't know her, but I friended her on Facebook for that reason. He hasn't and won't, but I don't know why I'm telling you that, but I guess the point is this is not the same kind of situation as toxic relationships, but it is a situation that's, well, she may be a little toxic, but I'm not worried about it.
But I think the point being is like, I think it's important for people to get clear on like what monogamy is.
Yeah.
And, I think what you're saying, Angie, and It's just that understanding of like, okay, we deal with emotional issues like between us. If we need outside support, it's not appropriate for me or for, whoever's in a relationship to turn to an ex to get emotional support. Like that's a great way to just stir the pot, is that there's just nothing that's not appropriate. And it opens the doors for emotional infidelity. And it's not a good idea. So, but being clear about that. And then even if somebody else, because I've had this happen before. I had a friend of mine, I dated this guy when I was in high school, and we were friends for many years before, and we were friends for many years after. And then I distanced myself, and then I got married, and he got married. And anyways, he'd kind of resurfaced, and then I had gotten divorced, but then he was on the outs with his wife. And it was this whole thing of like, well, it's okay. We were friends and we're friends now. And oh, she doesn't mind, kind of a thing. But the few times we did talk, it would start going back to the good old days of high school. And finally I was like, you know what, she might be okay with us being, this was before I had good boundaries. I'm like, she might be okay with us being friends, but this doesn't feel comfortable for me. Like, it doesn't feel comfortable to talk about when we dated or, the group that we used to run around with. And so finally I was like, I just don't feel comfortable having you as you're an awesome guy, but being a friend when you're married, and it's disrespectful to your wife. And I'm not, even though she might be okay with it, I'm not okay with it. Right. And the reality is she's probably not okay with it.
Right. So, And I mean, and the thing is, I think in any relationship, healthy or otherwise, I think that it has to be a two-way street. I mean, it has to be like, how do I say that? Yeah, like you both have to be okay with it. And I don't think in any situation where we're talking about a toxic ex, is it ever appropriate for that to be, for two.
Great point.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. I've got another question from Rebecca here.
Yeah, who says,
so is recovering from a narcissist or a psychopath a mental health condition, or isn't it?
No, I wouldn't say so.
The closest thing that we have for being like a mental health condition is either really borderline personality disorder or PTSD or depression or anxiety.
Yeah, I would say I don't want to put borderline personality or any personality disorder on survivors. I would like to say, yes, I think the codependency term applies while we're in active toxic relationships. But I also think that CPTSD is a big, or I know some people are calling it something else now, but I'm still with the CPTSD thing. Mm-hmm. And like you said, depression and anxiety, those kinds of things. But I don't think that it can be called a disorder. Do you?
That being traumatized can be considered a disorder?
Yeah, I mean, that's not something that comes from within per se. I mean, I guess our reaction to it is from within, but it's manipulated until the point at which we stop allowing that to be the case.
Yeah.
I think, what
yeah. I think, post-traumatic stress disorder, like PTSD is accurate, but I agree with you as far as it's not necessarily a personality disorder, but I think a lot of survivors tend to get either really misdiagnosed oftentimes as having personality disorders because they show up and they're so dysregulated from everything that had happened. But no, there isn't, I guess what I was saying, there's like no official diagnosis of, egoism or, survivor of narcissism or anything like that. So we're at this weird place in mental health history where we obviously, like, we are here, we're like, this is a thing, this has happened to us, but we're trying to, the mental health community the terminology hasn't caught up yet.
Right.
To our experience. And so there's kind of this lag time there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I've heard people call it like narcissistic abuse syndrome. And I think that would be, but that's not obviously in the DSM or anything. But I think that would be the the closest label that, you know, in addition to the ones discussed,
Mm-hmm.
that you could really give it. I think it's Kim Said who I first heard use that term, syndrome. But, and I think that would be the closest possible thing. But again, I don't think it's, I think a personality disorder is different. So, but you know, what do I know? Anywho, let's move on.
Yeah.
Okay. I saw one from, here it goes, Ancient Lantern. And this is kind of interesting. Am I the only one who tends to feel like I see people who look like, wait, who love me? I think she means looks like my people who look like her narcissist everywhere, or that the narcissist looks like celebrities. She says hers looks like a certain type of, you know, Kurt Russell. Anyway, and I think that's an interesting question. What do you think about that?
I think when a person is traumatized by somebody, especially if they're fresh out, they start, it's so active in your brain that your brain is set to scan for anything that's causing you danger. And so it's very common for people to be like, oh my goodness, I'm seeing their name everywhere. Or every time I think of them, they call, or other people look like them, or they drive cars like them. And that's just, it's the reticular activating system part of your brain that's on high alert, and it's filtering all of this incoming information to see if it's relevant for you. And when we've been through something traumatic, whatever that trauma might be, we're going to start noticing all of that stuff more and more. That tends to calm down in time as the trauma itself tends to just kind of calm down.
Yeah.
But no, you're not, you know, you're not going crazy. You're not, it's just your brain. Your brain's just set to scan for this kind of information.
Yeah. And I think on the flip side of that, the other thing is that we as human beings tend to do that, like, especially if you're missing someone. But like, here's an example. My oldest son, he's very tall and has dark curly hair and is a certain kind of body shape. He's kind of narrow and long. And whenever I see someone from far away who looks like that, I always like, oh, is that my son? He has a, you know, he moved out. He's a grown up now. I mean, hold on. He's a grown up now. I didn't mean to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I still think of him as my child, but he's literally paying bills and being a grown up now. So he is a grown up, but he's out in the world. And so he's not here every day anymore. And so I don't see him all the time. And so there's that. And then there's also the fact that, like, at my mother-in-law's funeral, I was very, very close with her. She was like the mother I never had, kind of. I saw one of her friends sitting in the church, and the way the light was hitting her as I was coming in from, you know, outside to the funeral, I swear to you, for a full 45 seconds, I thought it was her, the mother-in-law. And I almost passed out. It was that serious. And it was really bizarre, but it really happened. And I know her so well that I could, you know, I was still probably 20 or 30 feet from this person. And I was kind of just seeing her from, you know, the side behind a little bit, but they have a similar haircut, similar body shape. And it was just weird. So I think that's the other thing, is that we're always looking for something familiar in addition to danger. So I think,
Yes.
you know, whether you were physically afraid of this person or not, you're still looking for familiarity, and and somebody who's dark hair, blue eyes. I mean,
It's amazing how that happens. And especially I think under periods of extreme stress. Like, for example, my uncle passed away a handful of years ago. And my father texts me and he says, and this is so ridiculous. He was like, he's like, this is going to sound crazy, but his brother's name was Rich. He's like, I see a picture of Rich in my bath mat.
oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my God, Dad. And so he sends me this text in the picture. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that's really wild. Like, that really does look like Uncle Rich. And, you know, and of course, people were making up all kinds of superstition about this. And I'm like, you guys, this is on the level of people seeing, like, you know, the Virgin Mary in a grilled cheese sandwich.
Yes.
Like, your brain is designed to seek out patterns and things that are familiar and significant for you. And the more stress you're under, the more you're going to see that. And had we identified that as being Uncle Rich in the bath mat, you know, a year ago, probably not.
Right.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's very interesting. That's a really interesting story. I like that. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, that, I think everything that you said was accurate. Okay.
I've got a question from Joe and this is an interesting one. I've never heard of anything like this, Angie. So chime in here. He says, is EMDR required for recovery? I started a course on it and it messed me up really, really bad. I wish I'd never tried it.
I do not think it's required for recovery. I think it works for some people and it doesn't work for some people. It sucks that it messed you up really bad. I wonder if it wasn't something that was being done by somebody who didn't understand how to do it or what. What are your thoughts on that, Dana?
Yeah, I've never heard of anybody having a bad experience with EMDR. Have you?
Never. No.
Yeah.
No.
And I would agree. Like, Joe, if you're comfortable kind of giving more details, like where do you think things took a turn with the EMDR?
Yeah, I would be interested in knowing that too. Is that Joe Sauter that asked that question?
Yeah.
Oh, I hope he's okay. Huh. Oh, apparently earlier when I said you think, Joe Sauter said it at the same time. I just happened to come across that. Anyway. Okay, I have one from C. Rob. It's not a question as much as a statement, but here it goes. Oh, wait, you didn't answer your oh, yeah, you did. Okay. C. Rob says, my mother-in-law told me on the weekend that when my narcissistic husband attended a private boarding school, he refused to do the required volunteer work at a senior's home, just visiting, no respect. And I think that's an example of, a typical narcissist behavior. They're always special and different than everybody else. I had one that used to refuse to pay his own bills, and would literally not that he wouldn't provide the money, but he just wouldn't pay the bills, and he would require someone else to do it for him, and it was really bizarre. Anyway, yeah. Oh, Joe says his PTSD nailed him, I guess, regarding the EMDR. He said it put him down for bedridden for 6+ weeks as of today. They don't tell us that when we sign up for that. Wow, I don't know what he did, but apparently it was not good. Joe, do you have any other information you want to share? Okay, anyway, did you want to, wait a minute, I'm totally all over the place. Did I forget to ask you a question or to?
No, but if you have some.
Okay.
Jump in. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Jen says, I have CPTSD and I'm VLC with my 2 narcissists, very low contact. Okay. I had to think about that. And then she says, lead FOO. I have FOO could. Family of origin. Okay. LED. I think she's saying that she's got a lot of things. She's saying she has CPTSD. She's very low contact with both of her narcissists from her family of origin. Her therapist says she can't go no contact because family of origin could really hurt her family if angered. I guess she's saying family of origin, FOO. Oh,
that's my guess.
Her local family or her nuclear family. Okay. She says they have connections and power. Advice. I mean, I don't know if you must be in contact with them, I would just keep it very low contact and I would gray rock and never give them one bit of your emotion. But I'm not sure that your therapist, I mean, I guess if they have power and money and connections, they could hurt you, but I don't know. What are your thoughts, Dana, on this? I would say, yeah.
I feel like, we don't have full context for everything. Like,
right.
This gal does. And so if there's things that we're missing, like for family is potentially dangerous. Mm-hmm. I think whatever decision that you make in any aspect of your life, the 2 guiding principles are like, what is going to keep you safe and sane? And if you can't go no contact from them out of fear of your life, like if your family has connections to the mafia or something like that, then you need to do what you need to do in order to stay safe and sane. You might need to move, would be another option.
Change your name.
Yeah. I mean, say that you're moving because of some sort of job and then move to a different country. I don't know full context.
How serious, right?
But but I think you need to make that decision. So if you're like, well, I don't know, my family could be, difficult if I go no contact with them. I think you need to make the decision at the end of the day. So even though your therapist is saying, hey, these are my concerns, you still need to make the decision. as far as like what actions you take.
Yes, I absolutely agree. 100%. Yeah. Okay. This is okay. I think we've already answered that one. Do Rebecca had one, but I think we kind of covered that. Oh, wait. Oh, is it or isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
Here's one from
Okay.
Kathy. Unless,
All
did
right.
you have one?
Mm.
Did I just cut you off?
No, you're good. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. Kathy says, how do you get past the people who don't believe that you were emotionally abused?
Oh, watch this. I'm like, bye. Or I don't talk about it to them. I don't walk around. I mean, this sounds funny because I talk about it on YouTube, but I don't walk around in the world talking about my own emotional abuse. Now, I do talk about it somewhat on YouTube, but only to demonstrate what it looks like. And I think that and only because of what I do for a living. I think that once you have gone through the point where you've healed, then you don't need to dwell on it, but you just need to stay, aware and alert and not allow it to happen again. If someone in your family or one of your very close friends is ridiculing you or minimizing you or invalidating you and you need someone on your side, that's not the person who's on your side. If they don't believe you've been emotionally abused and they're somehow affecting you negatively because of that, then I would remove myself from that person because my guess is that person is doing, I mean, I feel like denying anyone's experience is almost a form of emotional abuse in itself. That was one of the things that I grew up, growing up, I knew that nothing I felt, thought, said, or did was as legitimate as everyone else. I always felt invalidated and I couldn't put a word on it until I was an adult and I really looked at it. But that's invalidation. And that is a toxic, at the very least, behavior. So I would step back from that person or not discuss it with that person. What would you do, Dana?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a big piece in our recovery is like what I was saying before is thinking about using your understanding of keeping yourself safe and sane in every single way, in every single interaction is such a game changer. And one of the ways that we do that is by being able to identify who is emotionally safe and who isn't. And
Right.
so, like Angie was saying, if you're sharing your reality with somebody and they're denying it, they're minimizing it, they're invalidating it, then that person's not emotionally safe.
Right.
And so once we realize this of like, okay, I cannot share this part of my reality with this person, then it's time to take a few steps back and change, because we can't change them. We can only change ourselves. Then we have to change how we approach that relationship. We might just not talk about that topic. We might decide, you know what, actually, this person maybe isn't that great of a friend after all. We might kind of just downgrade it from maybe being a real close friendship to somebody that's more of an acquaintance. There's lots of different ways we can kind of reshuffle our understanding of this person in our life. But I think the most important is to just to realize they don't understand for whatever reason. And it's going to be re-victimizing and traumatizing for us to try to get them to understand.
Yeah, agree. 100%. Okay, I lost the post, but somebody was saying, well, ASMR is for them. And first of all, let me say hello, Breon, and your beautiful face. I just saw that he popped in. I don't know if he's still here, but anyway, ASMR, okay, you know what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for those of you who don't know, ASMR is this weird thing that happens. People do it on YouTube a lot because it's a lot of sounds, and like some people like. And I've seen, like, one of my son's friends listens, this is the most bizarre thing, to a recording of a vacuum cleaner while he sleeps. Okay, that's one form. And then there's these people who whisper into their thing and they crinkle paper and they run their fingers. It's really, it's not for me. But I did a little research on it, and I understand that certain brain types are, it makes them tingle. It makes them feel a certain kind of way. And I don't know if it's like a young people thing or if it's like a certain brain configuration or what, but it does not work for me. But I will tell you this. This is a huge industry, and there are tons of people who do it on YouTube. And what I did the research is that in addition to it only affecting certain types of brains, it also causes, what is it? Oh God, I can't think of it. Okay,
let me Google it real quick because there's
yeah. Yeah, do Google it. It's like it makes people feel like they're being taken care of. That's what it is. So like people listen to it before they go to bed and they feel tucked in, or I don't get it. Like personally, it's not a thing that works for me, but I know that a lot of people, certain, and I don't know what it said. What do you find about who it affects positively and who it doesn't? Do you find anything?
Okay, so ASMR stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, and it's
Yeah.
characterized by a static-like or tingling sensation on the skin that usually begins on the scalp and moves down the back of the neck and upper spine. Let's see. Let's see. A lot of people that do experience this describe it as, it's very relaxing, it's comforting.
Yeah. And that's what I basically have seen. There's a series, I think it's Netflix, that has a series right now where it's like a BuzzFeed series or something, and this reporter goes around and learns all this stuff, and that's why I learned about it a little bit. It's interesting. I think it's fascinating, and I think, like I said, I know that it works for her. It works for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody. But I guess she went to like a live ASMR session where they were physically touching her as well, and
Hmm.
I don't think she liked that one as much. But people do it on. I mean, it's got huge following on YouTube and elsewhere. But I don't know.
Well, that's interesting that I had never thought about ASMR being touch based, but I know when we were kids, we were forced to go to church every Sunday. We went to Catholic church. So there's, you to be quiet. And my brother has just extreme ADD and was very hyperactive. And so during church, my mom used to do this thing on her arms where she would run her nails up and down from his wrist to his elbow.
Mm-hmm.
And that would keep him calm. And he would sit there quiet. She would either do that or he would draw.
Yeah.
But
And I've seen that actually help. Like this is silly. My husband, sometimes if he's not feeling well and I do that, he doesn't like the full on massage back rub, but he likes the fingers, just tracing the back, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll put him right to sleep. And it relaxes me for sure if somebody's touching me, but the ASMR in the ear thing, it does not do anything for me. It kind of grosses me out a little bit when I hear that stuff.
It's a little strange. Yeah.
It's weird, right? It gives me the yuckies, not the niceys. I don't know.
Yeah.
But everybody's different. And I think if it works for you, go for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever works. Yeah. Okay.
I have a question from Anne here, who says, as a person with PTSD, I notice that I gravitate to unhealthy relationships. Is that normal?
Well, yeah. I mean, but knowing it is the first step to changing it, my friend. I think we can all admit that at some point in our lives, or up to a certain point in our lives, we gravitated to unhealthy relationships because we didn't know any different. And then once we knew better, we tried to do better. And so now just try to do better and try to recognize red flags and have higher standards for yourself. Dana, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the big draw or the big aha piece there that can set a lot of people free is it's the realization of the pull of these unhealthy relationships tends to be toxic relationships, and toxic people tend to come along with a high degree of intensity. And if we're misreading that intensity as intimacy or as sincerity, then we're going to continue to get pulled into it. Healthy people, when somebody comes on so strong and they're love bombing you and they're making you the center of the world and they're telling you everything that you want to hear, and it's so much, they just want to see you every single moment and talk to you. They see that as smothering. Mm-hmm. They don't see that as sincere or romantic. And so it's really kind of reshaping our understanding about that level of intensity. And but then that kind of leads down this whole rabbit hole of like, okay, well then why did we ever find this level of intensity attractive? Like what was that pull? And this is a great question, and it's a really big answer that I don't think we can even begin to cover in like one episode, but it's a lot of it has to do with kind of what we were talking about the beginning of this live stream about kind of like codependency and the echo syndrome of partners of manipulative people. We also tend to have a lot of like attachment and abandonment issues. And so if we didn't get a lot of that those emotional buckets filled. If we've been walking around feeling unloved or unimportant, and somebody comes in and they start love bombing us, I mean, it's like warm maple syrup on the pancakes of your soul. I mean, it feels so good. It's intoxicating. And so we're mistaking that feeling. We're thinking, oh, this is like a fairy tale. This only happens in the movies. I'm so lucky that it's happening to me. Right. Yeah. And then not realizing that's never real. It's never real. The romance, like real, true romance, real, true intimacy, that kind of stuff is built over time. And everybody goes through that initial like idealization phase with their partner. Everybody goes through that. But how much we get lost in that and how much we start creating this fantasy around the other person, that's where things can get really unhealthy.
Right.
But a lot of our pull to these people, we get caught up in the fantasy of this person's their love will complete us. And now, or it's the relief of now I can start living my life. I finally met this missing piece. And we're putting so much of ourselves in the other person. And then in turn, we start, because we don't want to lose that relationship, because we have our own attachment issues with people, because we're putting so much of our energy into like, I need you to complete me. You can't leave because then I'll be incomplete. That's when we start grinding down these sides of ourselves to try to make this relationship work so they won't leave, not realizing that that's unhealthy on our end. And then, of course, when you get tangled up with a pathological personality or a highly manipulative person, and they're insisting that you do, and they're telling you that everything that they don't like about you is somehow bad or wrong, we're internalizing that. And then we're willingly grinding down ourselves thinking that they somehow know best. So there's a lot of things that we need to get in balance so that we can operate from like our authentic self when we're relating to other people. And a big part of that is like learning about like healthy boundaries and healthy standards and healthy deal breakers and healthy communication and having healthy expectations of another person and not expecting them to complete us.
I agree. That's the thing. Being complete yourself.
Yes.
Is the first, you have to be there first before you just do. And I'll tell you something. I can say that I was close when I met my husband. I was nowhere near complete. And so like, it's already done. It's too late now. I met him obviously after the fact. I had been single officially for 2 or 3 years when I met him, and so, divorced because I was single for a year before I was divorced, but I chose not to date during that time because I was trying to heal myself. I didn't know what was wrong. I just knew that I was broken from that relationship. Later, I figured out all the other stuff. You know what I mean? So it was a process, but I guess my point is that if you're already in a relationship and it's a relatively healthy one, you can work through that. But at the same time, if you have the option, don't get in. And I was close. Like I said, I was close. I just didn't understand the narcissism part of it. Okay. But I knew I had boundaries. I knew what my deal breakers were. And I knew that I didn't need this person to be in my life. I was a whole person by myself. It took me a minute to get there. But that's the thing, be whole, and then think about going forward and letting someone join your life. If you can get to a place where you actually prefer to be single over being with someone who's not right for you, then you're in the right place to be dating somebody, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree. And if you can walk away from a relationship that's not healthy for you, then that's a good place too. And it's really making that mindset shift from an attitude of scarcity to an attitude of abundance. Because that scarcity mindset is, I need you to complete me. And I've got this fantasy of you and I need you to be that. Right. And so we're like clinging onto them because we've already had enough loss in our life. Right. Maybe our parents, we're no longer talking to them, or they're dead, or they're just not very emotionally available, or we've had several divorces, or friendships end, or we've moved, or these kinds of things. And so we've suffered enough loss that we're like, I'm so tired of this. Like, I just want a safe place to land kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And we're using that relationship as a safe place to land. But that's coming from that attitude of scarcity. And when we're taking action from that place, it's really out of like fear, guilt, or obligation. It's not coming from a place of love.
Right.
But when you build up that life that you love, then it's sort of like, then other people are the candles on your cake.
Yes.
They're not the cake. They're not even the icing. They're the candles. And it's like, you appreciate them for who they are. They don't need to change. They're good quality people. They bring value to your life. You bring value to them. There's the synergy and there's that sense of mutuality there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you something. This is an interesting question that I think feeds right into this. And I'm in fact not going to say the names of the coaches mentioned because they're both YouTubers and I'm not trying to talk about other YouTubers in a negative way. Okay. But this person says, how come so many quote unquote coaches, like two popular narcissism coaches we both know, one of them being a doctor, keep failing in their relationships? And are they just scamming people with their books and courses even when it's not working? Now, I want to say something about this because first of all, I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to assume that everything they say is wrong. Now, would I necessarily take like being in a relationship advice from somebody who can't stay in a relationship? Of course not. But would I take self-esteem advice from somebody who happens to have not worked out in their, them not staying in those relationships might be an example that they're trying to set for us by, even if it's not a healthy situation, or even if it is a healthy relationship, there are other things that can cause people to grow apart and to change and to fail in relationships besides being just a toxic person. For example, I know the life of someone who does what I do is you have to be like, I have to force myself to stop working in order to spend time with my family. And I'm going to be really straight up with you. If it was just my husband and not the kids, I don't know that I would do that. And that's horrible to say. I'm not saying I don't love him. I'm just saying the work we do is all encompassing. And so I don't want to assume anything. I know the one person mentioned, I don't know as well, and I don't really have anything to say about at all. The other person mentioned, I know a little bit better, and I know that person has some accurate things to say that are valuable and valid when it comes to self-respect, self-love, and the psychology behind all of that stuff and the psychology of narcissists. I don't agree with everything that person says, but I agree with enough of it that it's someone that I will work with on things. And again, I'm not saying names only because, and Dana, I'll tell you what the names are if you want me to.
I think I read it. Yeah.
Okay. And you guys can all read it if you want to. I just don't talk about other YouTubers in a negative way ever. That's my policy. And those two in particular are ones who I have nothing negative to say about personally. So I'm a little torn on how I feel about that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, Dana.
I think you had a really great answer to that. I think you just, you hold on to what helps and let the rest go.
Yeah. That's all you can do.
And also sometimes too with relationships, sometimes the ending of a relationship is the healthiest thing that can be done.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Yeah.
If things really start going off the rails or you find out your partner's been up to stuff that you didn't know, or they took a turn, or they developed an addiction, or,
Exactly. And something happens and you can't, would it be fair? Should they stay in those relationships that are broken just to prove to you that they could do it? I don't think so.
And I think this brings up a good point too, back to the not wanting relationships to end, right? If we see the ending of a relationship as always a failure, then that's something for us to reflect upon, because there was a great book that we read a while ago in book club called Necessary Endings by Henry Cloud. Brilliant book. And he really talks about this, that we need to be able to understand when things end, and to not internalize that and mean oh, I'm a failure. There's something deeply wrong with me. I can see the disconnect between giving a relationship advice and then not being able to stay in a relationship.
Totally.
But I think we also need to kind of broaden our understanding of what is a healthy relationship, because I know people that have been married for 50 years and that marriage should have ended a long time ago, and there's nothing to be celebrating.
Right. Exactly.
With them staying married.
Exactly. So. Yeah. I mean, yesterday was my 13th wedding anniversary with my husband.
Good for you.
Thank you. And I'm here to tell you all, relationships are hard, even the healthy ones, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, I can tell you honestly, he's still physically attracted to me. He's still nice to me, mostly.
Mhm.
He's still doing all the things he needs to do as a father and a husband, and he's a great person. But we fight sometimes, we argue, I mean, not physically, we argue sometimes, we disagree on things, you know, and both of us are stubborn jerks about it sometimes, you know.
Mhm.
We both really, we're passionate people, but we ultimately always stay together because we choose to. And you know, we have this sign above our bed that says always kiss me goodnight. You know, we try not to go to bed angry, we try to, you know, do all the right things, but we're human too. And you know, nobody's perfect, no relationship is perfect. And what I think real love is when you love each other even when you're angry, when you love each other even when, you know, look, I'll say this one thing and then we'll move on. Here's an example. I may have said this on one of these streams before, but I'm just going to really quickly. So a few years ago, my husband and I were having one of those little moments where we were disagreeing about something, and we weren't really, you know, we were kind of separate rooms in the house, not like permanently, but for that hour or whatever. He was down in his office, I was upstairs in the living room with the kids. And I found this thing on Facebook, or somebody sent me a message on Facebook, and it was just basically one of our neighbors was smear campaigning and saying a lot of really terrible things about me. And so I rushed downstairs without even thinking about the fact that we were arguing to his office. And I showed him this. Have you seen this? And suddenly there was no more issue between us because now it was us against the world, you see. And so my point is that when it's real, you know, then there's object constancy. You know, and you know that you love that person even when you're angry at that person. And I think that's what's different from a toxic person, from a narcissist. They don't have object constancy when it comes to loving someone, because of course that person is an object to them, but also in general, they can't be mad at someone and love them at the same time. So literally when they are angry at a person, they do not love that person. And that's part of the reason they can be so cruel, in my opinion. But anyway.
Yeah. And I think, you know, healthy relationship, it's built on that foundation of dignity and respect.
Yes.
For the other person. And there's that sense of maturity there of like, because it's not necessarily like the absence of conflict makes for a healthy relationship. It's
Right.
it's how people handle that conflict when it surfaces, because it'll happen. If two people are being authentic, there's going to be disagreements. And
yes.
It's, can we handle this in like a mature, solutions oriented way? Even if that means, hey, you know what? I got to take a time out. Like, I'm so mad. I'm going to say a bunch of things I'm going to regret. And I just need to be alone. Like, I'll go for a walk. And then when I come back, like, let's talk about this.
Right. Like for my husband and I, we have different political opinions. And I'm not that big. I don't care that much either way. I mean, I do, but I don't. I won't argue about politics with anybody, but that works well in our relationship because he enjoys talking about politics and he likes to, you know, have discussions about it. But that's one of those things I don't really do with him because I know that my opinion's different and I'm not as passionate about my opinion as he is about his. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that, you know, and if I were, I would certainly be right there with him debating about it if I gave a crap about it. But I realize I can't control as much as I think I can. But on the plus side, I do cancel out his vote every time. What's up? I'm just playing around. But anyway. Kind of. But anyway, yeah, it's a fun thing. I don't know. I guess my point for Las Miranda, and I think your point is the same, is that you can't assume that a coach is not capable just because their own relationship didn't work out. Because it could be for a reason that you don't understand, or it could be simply they grew apart, or life changed, or the spouse developed some other kind of new behavior, or as Dana mentioned, addiction. So I'm not saying you should give up on those coaches. And I do have respect for both of them personally. So, all right.
And I think you need to go, don't you?
I actually do. I just realized we were out of time. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for coming in today. I'm so sorry for the slightly less long session, but just so you know, we will be here, not here, over on Thrive After Abuse next Tuesday around 12:30 Central Time. And that's Dana's channel. You can find her there, Thrive After Abuse on YouTube, Thrive After Abuse on Facebook, thriveafterabuse.com. Make sure you sign up for her stuff too. And if you hit the bell notification, you will be notified when we go live. So Dana, as always, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Same here. Thank you so much for having me, and I will see you next week.
I'll see you then.
Okay.
Adios.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.